Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the Diane Schuler case. Schuler was responsible for the 2009 Taconic State Parkway crash that killed 8 people. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. So first I'll take a look at the background. This section is fairly brief, then the timeline of the crime, then the mental health and personality characteristics. So starting with the background, there's not really a lot of information about Diane's background. She was 36 at the time of the accident. She was married. She had a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. She worked full-time in accounting and made about $100,000 per year. Her husband worked as some sort of security guard. He had 1 previous DUI. Friends and relatives reported Diane was dominant, controlling, strong-willed, productive, and secretive. In the HBO documentary that covered this case, there are some references made to Diane's mom leaving home when she was young, which sort of left Diane feeling responsible to take care of her brothers. Diane smoked cannabis nearly every night, but as far as alcohol, family members denied that she had a problem. So moving to the timeline of the crime. The collision occurred on July 26, 2009. It was a Sunday. That weekend, Diane and several family members were at a campground in Parksville, New York. At about 9:30 a.m., Diane departed from the campground, ostensibly headed back to her home in West Babylon, New York. Her husband departed at the same time in a pickup truck. The campground owner said that Diane appeared sober at this time. Diane was driving her brother's red 2003 Ford Windstar, some minivan. In the vehicle with her was her son and daughter, as well as her brother's 3 daughters, 8, 7, and 5 years old. None of them were in a car seat. Diane stopped in Liberty, New York, about an hour and a half later. She and her passengers spent time at a McDonald's. Then Diane went to a Sunoco gas station. The surveillance video shows that Diane walked in, kind of went to the back of the store, it was a very small store, and appeared to be looking for something. A worker at that gas station claimed Diane asked for Tylenol, and he also said she definitely was not drunk. I can understand how one person can look at another and say, okay, I don't see any evidence of intoxication. But to be this sure from an interaction that only lasted a few seconds, I guess he just finished reading the book, How to Convert Unjustifiably High Confidence into Lost Credibility in 3 Easy Steps. I don't think this was a very good witness, and it doesn't make sense that that store wouldn't have Tylenol, right? That's what she was ostensibly looking for. And it doesn't make sense that he could evaluate her that accurately in a couple seconds. So whatever happened in the store, I think, is really more of an unknown. It doesn't really add any value to understanding the collision later on. Not long after 11 a.m., Diane left Liberty, New York, and traveled on the interstate toward the Tappan Zee Bridge. We see reports that she was honking her horn, tailgating, flashing her headlights, changing lanes. So we see dramatic and aggressive driving. One couple reported they were bracing for impact because Diane was so close to their vehicle with the tailgating. Interestingly, they didn't call the police. Perhaps this type of driving had become a little too common in New York. A side note here, I live about 3 hours from New York, and I've driven there many times, all 5 boroughs, Long Island, and further north like Yonkers and White Plains, which would be closer to the Tappan Zee Bridge. Aggressive driving appears to be much more accepted in that environment. I've literally been behind vehicles where one driver changed lanes into the other, and both drivers just kept on driving after exchanging some colorful gestures, almost like this is just an everyday thing. I've also seen situations where there's a car on fire in the middle of the road and people were driving by it on each side, like it wasn't even there. Some were even yelling at the car's owner to move the car, which of course doesn't make any sense. The car's air conditioning couldn't keep up when a car is on fire. It would be uncomfortably warm in that environment. Now, in some other areas of the United States, if 2 door mirrors touch in a parking lot, people are on the phone trying to get a SWAT team to come out. So we see a lot of different levels of tolerance in terms of aggressive driving. Now getting back to this collision, at 11:37 a.m., Diane called her brother Warren Hance, the father of Diane's 3 nieces who were in the vehicle. and informed him that she was being delayed by traffic. Just 8 minutes later, Diane was spotted off to the side of the road on her hands and knees like she was sick. She did the same thing at a rest area not long after this. At this point, the situation is not looking good. Yet, it would be an hour and 15 minutes before there was another contact. Diane is somewhere near the Tappan Zee Bridge at around 1 p.m. At this time, a call was placed from Diane's phone to her brother. One of Diane's nieces tells Warren that Diane is not speaking clearly and she's having difficulty with her vision. Warren tells Diane to stop driving. He would come to get her. According to the HBO documentary, several wrong numbers were also dialed from Diane's phone. After this, Diane leaves her phone on the side of the road and continues to drive. At this point, Diane drove north, away from her house, and entered an exit ramp for the Taconic State Parkway near Briarcliff Manor. She accelerates as she is heading south in the northbound lanes. Witnesses reported that they had to veer out of the way to avoid an impact with the Ford Windstar. Evidently, Diane had an intense expression on her face. She appeared to be laser focused on her driving. At 1:35 p.m., after driving 1.7 miles, Diane, now traveling about 85 miles an hour, slams into a 2004 Chevrolet Trailblazer carrying 3 adult males. Those 3 men, Diane, Diane's 3 nieces, and her daughter, would die. Her son Brian survived with head injuries and bone fractures. A broken bottle of vodka was found in the Ford Windstar. Autopsy results indicated that Diane was intoxicated. Her blood alcohol concentration was 0.19%, almost 2.5 times the legal limit. She also had quite a bit of THC in her system, the active ingredient in cannabis. After the accident, we see that Diane's husband, Daniel Schuler, denies that Diane had any type of difficulty with substances. At first he said neither one of them had consumed alcohol during that camping trip, but later he changed his story, saying that they did, but Diane did not drink the day before the crash. Daniel and others have brought up a variety of theories, like Diane had a stroke, she had this problem with one of her teeth that was causing her pain, essentially arguing that the alcohol and the THC in her system should be ignored because there was some other type of mysterious medical event that explained the collision. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors, and also trying to answer the questions, what happened here? Was Diane guilty of murder? In this case, we see Diane Schuler, a hardworking mother of 2 who's highly conscientious and highly extroverted, causes this horrific collision and is clearly intoxicated at the time. We also see Daniel Schuler and others who believe there must be some other type of explanation outside of substance use. They say that Diane would never have done this deliberately or even recklessly. So I'll look at 3 main theories here that come up in this case and talk about how likely it would be that any one of these would have occurred. The first theory is that Diane had some sort of medical problem and that caused this collision. As part of this theory, we can include this idea that maybe she had 1 drink because she was in pain, and then some sort of terrible reaction occurred that caused her to drink the whole bottle. This theory really seems to be born out of denial. The autopsy is fairly clear. There is no medical condition reported here that could have caused this accident. She didn't have any problems with her teeth. The examination indicated there was no stroke or any other problem, again, that could have led to this accident. There's also this theory about migraines, like perhaps that caused the vision problems that she was reporting. Maybe that caused her to be looking for something like Tylenol, although again, I don't feel like that's a reliable statement given by that worker at the gas station. But either way, if she had migraines, that could explain some things, but it doesn't explain why there was this collision under these circumstances. It could explain a different type of collision, I think like a minor accident, but I find it hard to believe that a migraine could cause somebody to drive the wrong way down a highway at 85 miles an hour. Now, in addition to denial, there could be people in this type of situation who want to escape responsibility. No better way to protect yourself than to go on the offensive. It's impossible to know at this point, but it seems likely that some people close to Diane were aware that she had a problem with alcohol. We see these stories that say, well, the autopsy showed she didn't have cirrhosis of the liver, so that means that she could not have been drinking for a while. So it wouldn't be terribly unusual that she could have been drinking and had an absence of liver damage. Now, if she had been drinking heavily for a long time, like she was 50 or 60, then that type of damage would be more likely. But at her age, she could have easily had no liver damage and still been drinking quite regularly. Some people have said that Daniel and others must be telling the truth. Otherwise, why would they have fought this long if they were lying? Well, they could be doing this, again, because of denial. By definition, this would put it out of conscious awareness. It's not a matter of necessarily refusing to accept the truth. It's more of a situation where somebody cannot accept the truth. The truth isn't even an available option because it would be too painful. So going back to this potential cause, this idea that what happened was truly an accident and Diane was not responsible, I see this option as nearly impossible. A fantasy made up by people who will not or cannot come to terms with Diane's behavior. I would never underestimate people's ability to hide substance use. I've seen people that were regularly, severely impaired, and yet people around them did not know. They may have known something was a bit off, but they didn't know substances were involved. Also, some people who use substances develop fairly good manipulation skills. They want the high from whatever their drug of choice is, and they're going to get it no matter what. Behind the facade that people put up, there are all types of mental health problems: depression, anxiety, obsessions, traumatic memories, all types of fears, and of course, substance use. All these are more hidden than visible, and yet people seem surprised when they discover someone who suffers from one or more of these symptoms. Moving on to the second theory. This theory says that Diane became intoxicated, and this caused her to drive in a way that led to the crash. So under this theory, she's still culpable, but it was more like the drinking just got out of control, and she really didn't know what she was doing. The collision would not have been premeditated this way. This wasn't first-degree murder or suicide, but rather somebody who was just driving drunk and unintentionally caused the deaths of 8 people. I think this is possible. It could be that she was so intoxicated that she simply had no idea what she was doing. There have been other wrong-way collisions that were caused by drunk drivers who did not appear to intentionally get on the highway in the wrong direction. Their driving has often been described as erratic, a lot of crossing into other lanes, taking turns wide, not reacting quickly when something happens in front of their vehicle. So here's the thing with this theory. Usually those who drink excessively become somewhat accustomed to driving while intoxicated. This doesn't mean they're good drivers. Drinking and driving is always dangerous. It just means that they learn how not to get caught. At some level, they are aware of their own intoxication and might try to mitigate the amount of trouble that they can get in. For example, they might pull off to the side of the road, drive slowly, wait a long time at a stop sign or a traffic light before pulling into an intersection. It's not always dramatic, aggressive driving. Often it's rather a subdued, confused driving pattern. For those that go directly to incredibly aggressive driving, often they get caught much earlier in their criminal career. A person can't drive the wrong way on a road too many times before getting arrested. It's one of those things that other drivers tend to notice, even in areas where aggressive driving is normally tolerated. If Diane were a regular alcohol and cannabis user, which appears to be the case, and she was able to fool all these people, then it would stand to reason that she would have developed ways to cope better with the impairment that occurs when she was drinking, and she would have avoided drinking too much in situations where she could be easily detected. If she was so good at getting away with it, which again it appears like she must have been, why did she drink when there were 5 children in the vehicle with her? Her decision to drink so much under these circumstances doesn't make sense unless she needed the alcohol to accomplish a goal she could not otherwise accomplish. So this brings me to the third theory. Diane intentionally murdered 7 people and ended her own life. She used substances to give her courage, to reduce her inhibition, so she could carry out this plan. As she continued to drink that morning, feelings of depression, despair, anxiety, whatever was going on with her, intensified. Her quick consumption of alcohol caused her to feel sick, explaining why she pulled over a couple of times. It may also explain why she may have been seeking something like Tylenol. Her suffering and her inability to cope with emotions led to aggressive, yet still to some degree, precise driving. Witnesses reported she was deliberate in moving from lane to lane. She drove with a purpose. It was not random. She wasn't necessarily all over the road for a lot of that time. Eventually, she reached a point where her inhibitions were gone. She left her phone on the side of the road to avoid being tracked. At this point, she made her way to the exit ramp and drove the wrong way down the parkway. Witnesses reported that they were honking their horns, flashing their lights, and waving at her. She ignored all the warnings and accelerated to a speed that would generate a fatal collision. Even though I believe that the second theory could happen, I actually believe that this theory is the most probable. Driving down the highway in the wrong direction is typically a deliberate act. Maybe some people could actually pull onto an exit ramp in the wrong direction because they're impaired, but most of the time they would realize that something's not right and stop their vehicle. She did not do this. She persisted. She continued until there was a massive collision. I think it's likely that she was pushing the limits of alcohol consumption compared to her regular use. It doesn't make sense that she could have regularly consumed this much and not been caught before this. Here she was trying something different. She was going all out and trying to get rid of her pain. It explains why her behavior appears to be out of the ordinary. A new level of substance use means a new behavior. Now, some have said this scenario is unlikely because it doesn't explain why she would have taken the children with her. Well, if somebody is suffering a lot, they might not think of a circumstance like that. Getting out of pain becomes the goal, and other people really become irrelevant. Outside of the tragedy of the horrible loss of life, another tragedy in this case is the refusal or inability to accept the truth. Denial is an extremely common occurrence in people who use substances, but it's also something we see in people around them. And the denial of those people really enables the people who use substances. This denial may also be preventing the public from finding out what precipitated this terrible collision. Was there an argument? Was there a history of depression? Were there other signs that may have been ignored? The truth may cause pain, but hearing it's the only way we can advance our understanding of these situations and work to prevent them. So those are my thoughts on the Diane Schuler case. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to my channel and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.